My name is James Cockroft. I go by Jay. I'm actually third generation Cockroft, but family history, we won't talk about it, but somehow I should be the third, but somehow I got stuck with junior because my parents weren't really with it. I don't know, but that's my name, yep. Graduated from Belmont High School in 1963, the old high school. And just a quick little chronology from after that, I went off to the University of Massachusetts up in Amherst. However, I was fairly immature for my age and didn't really know what to do post high school. All I know is that all my friends said, you gotta go to college, you gotta go to college. My parents, neither of which had graduated from high school, couldn't really give me any guidance at all. So I just went out there, but I floundered because I had no direction, no idea what I was doing there. And I finally, after a while, I had a wake-up call and said, my life is going absolutely nowhere, and the only way I could start to change it is to grow up, in a sense, whatever that means, grow up. Well, I knew the military was looming because there was a draft at that time, and Vietnam was starting to go on and getting more and more. So, part of the practical thing was I know that if I did nothing and dropped out of school, I would end up getting drafted. So I just took the bull by the horns, and instead of that, I went ahead and enlisted in the Marine Corps. The presumption that I had at the time, not misguided, but at the same time, other branches of the service could have done the same thing, was I needed some external factor to try to make me grow up. And I figured the Marine Corps had all this bad press about, not bad press, but press about we'll make a man out of you and everything. And I kind of fed in on it, but it worked. It worked. It kind of got me away from mom and dad and motherhood apple pie and your clustered little life, and realized that you have to start to be an adult and grow up and be on your own and be able to function as an individual. So that's how I ended up in the service. No, I was just one of the thousands of people that went through basic boot camp and the advanced boot camp. I went in for 2 years. The recruiter made a fatal mistake. Back for years, the Marine Corps was always a 4-year obligation. Navy was 4 years, Air Force was 4 years, the Army was the only one that was 2 years. If you got drafted, it was 2 years. Well, I was prepared to go 4 years in the Marine Corps, and I had the paperwork all signed, and the recruiter, at the last minute, like filling in the last little slot before he had me sign the paper, said, how many years do you want to go for? And of course, I said, what do you mean? What years? He said, well, 2, 3, or 4. You can sign up for that because we're having trouble getting our quota for people going 4 years because they didn't like the idea of Vietnam. So they figured, well, heck, I'll get drafted. I'll only have a 2-year obligation. And since the Army had obligations still in Germany and South Korea, there's still a pretty good chance I may not go to Vietnam. Well, I'm not that stupid. I kind of did the quick math. I mean, one of my high school math teachers would have been beaming from the grave saying he did some basic math here. In the military, you can always ask for more time. You can re-enlist, but you can never ask for less. So I said, okay, let's go 2. Let's start with 2 and see what happens. Okay, well, of course, as it turned out in the long run, military life just wasn't for me. Although I do not begrudge it to anybody, but it was just me, so I was kind of happy I went to 2 years. So I think because I had that 2-year stigma attached to me, it was like I'm just going to be a number or a body going in, do your training, we'll take advantage of you for 2 years, and then you're gone. You're not going to be given any real special skills. We're not going to devote all that time. Just for a brief second, they opted me for helicopter training, but once they determined I was in for 2 years and they wanted to really lean on me to re-enlist for more time so I could get my helicopter training, and I just said, no, I said, I'm just not interested. Because I knew some other guys from the neighborhood who had gone in the military before me, so you'd be seeing them and talking to them, and I think for the most part it wasn't. There wasn't any major surprises. It was just rough. The only surprise I could probably say, which made me a better person, was I grew up in Belmont. I mean, come on, this is Belmont. you're running into people from all walks of life, all economic factors. You're talking about kids that were brought, born into the ghettos in this country. And that was probably the biggest awakening, is that for the first time in your life, you were really meeting other people from other walks of life. And we're talking the farm boy, we're talking the deep southerner, you can't even understand what they're saying. Their drawl is so thick. To, this person that's living on the south side of Chicago that just every time you looked at him, you were scared because you felt like, oh my God, this, but that was the best part of the military right there, is that it made me grow up and become a better person and realize that I'm just not, the world is more than Belmont, Massachusetts, and that's it. Go with the flow. Really. You realize that they're bigger than you, the organization. They've got all the power, they've got everything behind them as such, so you just have to adapt and go with the flow. That's all you did. You did what was expected and a little bit more. And that's it. One humorous note, the biggest challenge I had was trying to run 2 or 3 miles. I was never a good long distance runner. I think part of it is because I got a small body and my stride was only so much, because I can remember I did track here in high school, and I was good with 100, 200, but anything beyond that, I can remember Coach Paul Warner, you would just laugh at, and you say, Jay, he says, you just can't run any long distance, can you? Well, it's hard. I mean, you're doing all this thing through training, and they're expecting you with complete full gear on, to run 2 or 3 miles. You're like, I can't do this, but somehow you did it. Somehow you stepped up to the challenge. Part of it was fear. Oh my God, you didn't want to be castigated in front of everybody else like you couldn't do it. And so somehow you dug down deep and you found the strength to be able to do it. And it kind of made you feel good. It's like, I didn't really think I had that strength to do it. And it's external factors brought it about, but there it was. Well, here's an interesting thing. When I first got out of boot camp and they were telling everybody where they're going to be assigned, they gave me this MOS, which is short-term. The whole military is based upon acronyms. It's MOS, Military Occupational Specialty. Everybody's got a number. And they made me 3471. Well, heck, even the drill instructor who was giving out the assignments, he was just passing them on out, didn't know what it was. And turned out I was assigned to the 2nd Marine Division in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And it turned out they made me an accountant. I'm in the Marine Corps, I'm an accountant. Okay, well, you can understand in any military organization, for every 10% of the, quote, fighting people or direct correlation of fighting, you got 90% of the people are in the background supporting this whole effort that you don't see, and it's not glamorous, but military is not glamorous by any stretch. So they made me an accountant, and I said, oh, okay, I got no problem with that. Just kind of learned, and the biggest thing I had to learn, believe it or not, was a punch card machine. Okay, then I even think the museums have probably thrown them out by now. They're just too big and clunky, taking up too much room. So I was over there, and I said, yeah, this is going to be an easy gig. But then I started talking to a lot of guys in the area, in the barracks, that had been over to Vietnam, and I was kind of getting piqued. And it was my curiosity more than anything else. And then one of the things I told you, I said I knew I wasn't really too suited for military life, is that in the back in the rear area, back in the United States, there's a lot of spit and polish. And it's not my style, okay? So after you went through one too many inspections where you seemed like you didn't quite do things right, you're like, I want out of here. So I was curious, so I just went up to the first sergeant one day and I said, I want out of here, I want to go to Vietnam. Well, within 72 hours, I was out of North Carolina, heading out to Camp Pendleton for some more advanced training and going on over there. But when I got over there, I said, oh, this is going to be an easy gig. Well, when I got over to Okinawa, all Marines deployed to Okinawa for about a week before they went on subsequent to Vietnam. And well, at that point in time, they kind of said, well, you're going to be assigned to the 3rd Marine Division Rifle Company. I said, Rifle Company? They said, well, yeah. He says, we don't need any accountants over here. So you're going to be assigned to a rifle company. I said, well, I haven't any training in that. They said, well, remember, you're a Marine. All Marines are supposed to be riflemen. I said, well, what are you going to do? So I was an accountant for a year, which I parlayed into a college education at Bentley College after the Marine Corps, and I never looked back.
If you were on the front lines, what combat action did you witness?
A lot. Just leave it at that. Yeah.
When you returned home, what was the experience like?
For me, it wasn't really bad. You hear all these horror stories. We're not saying they existed or they didn't. I personally never saw it. Okay, I just never saw it. I'm sure I walked through the airport, the San Francisco airport, because when I left Vietnam, all I had on was a uniform. And because I was getting out of the service, so they flew me to San Francisco and then plunked me at a small military Navy base right in the San Francisco Bay for about 2 weeks before I got out of the service. I can remember walking through the airport. I never had any problem. What I noticed was it was the indifference of people. I have never, ever in my life wanted anybody to thank me like this. The saying now, thank you for your service. At some point, it's starting to become a little trite. It's like it's just a saying that people just, it's a feel-good saying. It's a feel-good saying. I never asked for any applause, any pat on the back, nothing, but I just sensed that there was but people were just kind of like not looking you in the eye. It was just that they just didn't, you reminded them of the horror that was going on over there. And they just wanted to kind of like be in their own little world and pretended it didn't exist because of, okay, and that was it. But I never did that. And when I went off to Bentley, it was the younger. I was older than the average person there, obviously, and it was just total indifference. That's that problem. I'm here, and that's it. But yeah, I did not experience any of the quote negative things that I hear. And I'm not going to, did they happen or not? I'm not going to say people are stretching the truth or anything, but I just personally, I never faced that myself. If I did, I would have remembered it because I would have been deeply hurt because I would have felt that people would be kind of like, figuratively speaking, spitting on some of my friends that died over there. It would have been a personal thing, okay? It's like, you can mess with things, but just don't mess with my family idea. It's just, you're crossing a boundary here. But it didn't happen to me. We were so tight, but it was because of the circumstances. We were from total different walks of life, just thrown together for a period of time, that we became as close as brothers, but yet we also knew at that same time is that we were going to be breaking up and we're probably never going to see each other again. I think it was just the reality of life. Everybody goes their own way. Geography, one of my best friends lived outside of Milwaukee. Well, I'm back here now. I'm going to Bentley. I mean, I don't have time time of money or whatever, just to go pop and go see him. And so over the years, people just wanted to be kind of absorbed back into their familiar surroundings, let's say. This was my familiar surroundings here and everybody else, so we just never did. My whole life has just been based upon the principles that the military taught me, which is just self-discipline. These are just often used words, but it's just act grown up, act responsible in life. Allow yourself some comedy in your life, some frivolity, okay? Because you can get burned out if you're just, too intense at the same time. But I think it just made me grow up as a person and learn to appreciate gosh, appreciate life. Okay, it's it's just disturbing when what's happening in Syria. You think of some of these little kids now. They were born into a war situation. They may never experience real, true happiness. But you park it. You got to put it in perspective in life. But it was that discipline that really helped me out. Okay, well, thank you very, very much.